Anisha, Chairman Hill, for those good words and those blessings. We certainly have a lot to be grateful for, as pointed out. Kolamasi, and good morning to you all. The Mohican Nation, as Chairman Hill said, my name is Shannon Holsey, and I'm the president of the Stockbridge-Munsee Band of Mohican Indians. And my nation, the Mohican Nation, sends you greetings and blessings, and we hope today finds you in good health and balance. The United States of America was founded on the notion of equality for all. And since the beginning, there was an acknowledgement, certainly by previous administrations, but certainly by President Biden, that although it was always the goal of the US government to live up to its trust responsibility, this country has never fully lived up to it. And throughout our history, this promise has been denied to Native Americans who have lived on this land since time immemorial. The pandemic has highlighted this long history of inequity as it devastated tribal nations. Native Americans contracted the disease at 3.5 times the rate of white Americans. And in some states, they are dying at a rate of 5 times their population share. President Biden and his administration also actionably demonstrated the opportunity the Build Back Better framework could mean to Indian country. I applaud this administration's commitment to upholding the US trust responsibility to our tribal nations by strengthening the nation-to-nation relationship between the United States and Indian tribes and working to empower tribal nations to govern our own communities, to make our own decisions, and also for answering the call from Indian country to appoint a Native American as cabinet secretary, who went from one of our most trusted congresswomen to becoming our appointed trustee. She, as well as this administration, understands that tribal sovereignty and self-governance, as well as honoring the federal trust responsibility to tribal nations, should be the cornerstone of federal Indian policy. The phrase, "work hard until you no longer need to introduce yourself," epitomizes the person I'm about to introduce, who on March 15th, 2021, just a short 8 months ago today, was confirmed as our Secretary of Interior and made history when she became the first Native American to serve as cabinet secretary. She is a member of the Pueblo of Laguna and a 35th generation of New Mexican. In my community, she is revered to as Mama Askina Wakatak, warrior woman. In 8 short months, she has re-engaged Indian country and amassed a team that understands the challenges we face as tribal community. She comes to this appointment prepared, poised, and purpose intended. And she keenly understands the challenges facing Indian country firsthand. By boldly initiating a strategy that not only identifies the much needed resources and builds upon her tribal and federal interagency relationships to address the challenges and vulnerabilities that our tribal nations face daily. Imagine at the helm of her leadership and aligned with this administration, what opportunities the next several years will bring to Indian country. She is one of the first Native American women to serve in Congress. And while in Congress, she focused on environmental justice, climate changing, missing murdered Indigenous women and relatives, and of course, family-friendly policies. She continues that acute focus in her new role with purpose and intention, further demonstrated by her actions. She certainly has faced her own heartaches. She got married, she ran a marathon, and she really has taken the phrase, "don't threaten me with a good time," to a whole new level. She has also tasked the Interior Department to address the intergenerational impact of Indian boarding schools to help shed light on the unspoken traumas of the past. The Federal Indian Boarding School Initiative will serve as an investigation about the loss of human life and the lasting consequences of residential Indian boarding schools. President Biden and this administration's bold agenda, along with his robust executive and regulatory actions to date, represents the United States intention to capture the economic opportunity that addresses the climate changes present. These historical Build Back Better investments will be complemented by the bipartisan infrastructure deal, which will help us rebuild the arteries of our economy while accelerating clean energy, transportation, and advancing environmental justice, and of course, bolstering resilience, which we all know so much about. Secretary Haaland represents and understands what the bipartisan infrastructure deal's historic investments will make in tribal communities and what it will mean to help bolster community resilience, replacing aging infrastructure, and providing much needed support. And of course, much needed support for the climate related relocation and adaptation. She understands that climate change impacts every person on this planet, but not every person has access to life saving resources or the ability to relocate when disaster strikes. Entire communities and cultures are at risk of being lost to the perils of climate crisis, while still creating a platform of inclusion and consultation of the sovereigns of this land who have protected, stewarded, and governed Turtle Island since time immemorial. The strength, determination, purpose, and adaptation of this warrior woman is unwavering. I am humbly and proud and honored to introduce one of the most audacious people I know, who truly represents the hopes and dreams of our ancestors, the Secretary of Interior, Deborah Haaland. Anishik.
Thank you so much for that kind introduction, President Halsey, my dear friend. Your advocacy for Indian country and your commitment to your tribe are an incredible asset to our country, and I am inspired by your leadership. Thank you again. Guwatsi Halpa, greetings tribal leaders and esteemed guests. I'm honored to be here with you and with my colleagues and friends to welcome you all to the Biden-Harris administration's first White House Tribal Nations Summit. I'm sorry that we cannot be together in person, but I welcome the chance to speak with you today virtually. I pray that you and your communities are safe as we continue to weather this pandemic. The White House sits on the ancestral homelands of the Anacostan and Piscataway people. I hope that the ancestors are smiling down as we take the next few days to work together on the challenges and opportunities facing Indian country. The fact that I'm making these remarks in front of you today feels like a dream that was envisioned by the ancestors long before now. My story is not unlike many of yours. I grew up in a military family. I learned what it meant to be a Pueblo woman from my grandparents, my mother, and my Pueblo sisters in our community. I worked hard in school. I struggled. I raised a loving child. I embraced my identity as a descendant of boarding school survivors and advocated for my community by organizing Indigenous voters to increase our presence at the polls so that we would have a voice in our government's decisions. I knew even then that in spite of seemingly insurmountable odds, we are still here and we have a voice. A parade of voices from around the country, speaking to issues that have been spoken of for generations, but which so often have been mired by indifference. Our voices have been given a new platform, and I am just one of those who have taken this historic opportunity to move past the days of inaction and apathy, to take Native issues to the forefront of policy discussions, and to ensure tribal consultation is the accepted way of doing business in Indian country. In 2008, I made an unwavering commitment to the electoral process by working tirelessly to register voters and to get out the vote for President Obama and Vice President Biden. I remember distinctly when President Obama first gathered tribal leaders here in our nation's capital to work on the important issues facing their communities. That was in 2009, and it was a breath of fresh air to see our people have a nation-to-nation conversations directly with cabinet secretaries, administrators, and representatives from across the federal government. It is with that same commitment to tribal nations that President Biden reconvenes this summit today for the first time since 2016. It is with that same commitment that President Biden appointed me as the first Native American cabinet secretary and more than 50 other Indigenous people in high-level positions throughout his administration. And we have prioritized a number of early actions to strengthen Indian country, including historic investments in tribal communities through the American Rescue Plan, our all-of-government approach to tribal consultation in which Native people are consulted before policies are developed, the unleashing of $1 billion in grants to increase access to broadband internet on tribal lands, and the billions of dollars that will begin to flow across Indian country thanks to the infrastructure bill that the President will sign into law today. This commitment also drives the work we do at the Department of the Interior, whether it's restoring tribal homelands and empowering tribes to make decisions for their communities, or putting the power of the federal government behind the work to address the missing and murdered Indigenous peoples crisis and the intensive process we are undertaking to heal from the terrible impacts that boarding schools have had on our communities. These things are possible because Joe Biden is our president. The last time I stood with the president, he permanently protected Bears Ears National Monument, and I can't tell you what that meant to me. I don't have to because I know from so many of you that it meant the same. President Biden came into office at a pivotal moment for our country. It was a moment in which a global pandemic, the economic uncertainty that stemmed from that public health emergency, the climate crisis, and the impacts of historic marginalization and racial injustice were all at our doorstep. This administration understood that all of these challenges are intertwined and must be addressed head-on. We also understand that we cannot address these challenges unless we partner with and honor our nation-to-nation relationship with tribes. You all are the keepers of our traditions, the defenders of our resources, and visionaries for our future. You and your communities harness Indigenous knowledge that we need to help guide our government and our environment, not just across budget years, but across generations. This administration understands that tribal leaders know your communities best and that the right solutions are created when tribes consistently have a seat at the table. This week will be the continuation of those important discussions. My colleagues and I have much progress to share, as well as announcements about the path ahead. But most importantly, we are here to listen and to learn. You are here to share the hopes, dreams, challenges, needs, and goals of each of your communities so that our solutions reflect your input. Throughout this summit, we will host a series of panels across a broad range of topics that impact Indigenous communities, including combating COVID-19, Native American education in Native languages, public safety and justice, climate change impacts and solutions, tribal treaty rights and sacred lands, economic and workforce development and infrastructure, housing, and energy. It is my hope that we all can use this opportunity to learn from each other, expand our knowledge, and build an even stronger foundation for the future. That foundation will be made up of the trust we build together, the relationships we nurture, and the commitments to ensuring that our communities have a bright future for generations to come. Each year, this summit will serve as a milestone to measure progress, course correct where needed, and reconnect. I'm grateful to stand here on the shoulders of the many leaders who came before me. I know that I stand here because the path that many of you carved ahead of me was clear. I intend to work with and for all of you so that we can ensure that our children have every opportunity to achieve their dreams and one day stand on my shoulders to achieve even more of what is needed to help tribal nations grow and prosper. It is with that sense of purpose and with deep gratitude that I am honored to introduce a longtime friend of Indian country and our compassionate leader, the President of the United States, Joe Biden.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. You're doing a great job. I say to the press, excuse my back. Next time in Washington, okay? I see you all up on the board behind me, and I hope we do this in person. I hope. That's my hope. Thank you. Good morning. I want to thank you for joining us. This is a big day. I think, as my mother would say, former Senator Danny Inouye is looking down going, finally. I was raised by Danny Inouye in the United States Senate. And to President Fawn Sharp and Chairman Hill of the Oneida Nation, and our President Polsey, I thank you all for what you're doing, and I want to recognize you. And Chairman Hill, I thought being from upstate New York and college, and my deceased wife is from Skinny Atlas Lake, not far from Oneida, New York. I thought that the Oneida Nation was all in central New York, but obviously you're up in Wisconsin. Come down and see us in Oneida. Anyway, I want to thank you, Madam Secretary, for your remarks, but I also want to thank you, Deb, for being willing to join when I asked you to come along and to serve. And as I said, I was confident at the time you would be incredibly important. When I got to the Senate, Danny Inouye took me under his wing. He helped me understand the simple truth that I had only been vaguely aware of. And that is that tribal nations do better when they make their own decisions. That's why some of the votes I took as a young senator were among my proudest. Supporting the Indian Self-Determination Education Assistance Act, the Indian Child Welfare Act, the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act, and so much more. When I ran for president, it was important for me to continue to make progress, and that's what we've done since I took office. When COVID-19 struck, it hit Indian country with devastating consequences. Native Americans contracted the virus at over 3 times the rate of white Americans, nearly twice the rate of lives lost. Twice as many died as a percentage. But tribal nations stepped up, and today the Native Americans have gone from being the population most harmed by COVID to one of the populations most vaccinated against COVID. That success has a lot to do with tribal leadership, but it also has to do with the American Rescue Plan, which included over $31 billion. $31 billion for tribal nations, the most significant investment in the history of Indian country, long overdue. Now we're taking the next step. Today I'm signing, and I'll shortly sign, a bipartisan infrastructure deal. Everyone knows we're long overdue to make major investments in infrastructure, but nobody knows that better than Indian country. Tribal lands have been chronically underfunded for generations. And so I'm very proud to say that when I sign the bill outside in the South Lawn shortly, the single largest investment in tribal infrastructure ever is going to occur. More than $13 billion in direct investments to Indian country and tens of billions more in grants and future funding opportunities. Funding for clean drinking water, high-speed internet, roads and bridges, environmental cleanups, and so much more. But we can't stop there. We need Congress to pass my Build Back Better plan as well. Today, 1 in 10 Native American parents have reported having to quit or change their jobs or turn down an opportunity due to a child care challenge. This bill would save most families thousands of dollars per year in child care, helping moms and dads rejoin the workforce. It also, this bill, when it passes, will allow every 3- and 4-year-old in the nation to attend high-quality preschool, increasing considerably their chances of getting all the way through the first 12 years of primary school and on to college. It includes the most significant investment to tackle the climate crisis in history. And I might note parenthetically, no group of Americans has created and cared more about preserving what we inherited than the tribal nations. And it will be this also will expand health coverage, lower costs for millions of Americans. You know, we have to continue to stand up for the dignity and sovereignty of tribal nations. My dad used the word dignity, I think, more than any other word. He said, everyone is entitled to be treated with dignity. I was proud to reestablish the White House Council on Native American Affairs and to issue a memorandum my first week in office, instructing my entire administration to engage in regular, meaningful consultation with tribal nations. I was kidding my wife, Jill, who'll be out here shortly. She's visited the Navajo Nation so many times, I'm worried she's not going to come home. But look, I've been proud. I'm proud to name Native American leaders in my administration. Not only the first Native American cabinet secretary, and it won't be the last in history, but more than 50 Native Americans now serving in significant roles in my administration. We've also taken action to protect tribal lands, revoking the permit for the Keystone XL pipeline, preserving and protecting a sacred homeland, including Bears Ears and the Grand Staircase Escalante. It's part of who we are as a nation, and I'm grateful to the tribes who led the effort. You know, we also can be proud of that progress, but there's still so much more to do. So today I'm announcing 5 new initiatives. First, a new initiative involving 17 departments and agencies to protect tribal treaty rights in the work of the federal government. Second, a new initiative to increase tribal participation in the management and stewardship of federal lands. Third, my administration will be the first to work with the tribes to comprehensively incorporate tribal ecological knowledge into the federal government's scientific approach, helping us fight climate change. And fourth, taking action to protect the greater Chaco landscape in northwestern New Mexico from future oil and gas drilling and leasing. And fifth, I'm about to sign an executive order in a moment addressing the crisis of violence against Native Americans. Today, I'm directing federal officials to work with tribal nations on strategies to improve public safety and advance justice. This builds on the work we did together in reauthorizing the Violence Against Women Act in 2013, when we granted authority to tribes to exercise jurisdiction over non-Indian offenders who commit violence on tribal lands. We're going to reauthorize that again. We're going to expand the jurisdiction to include other offenses like sex trafficking, sexual assault, and child abuse. These efforts, again, to use the word my dad would use so much, are a matter of dignity. That's the foundation of our nation-to-nation partnership. That's what this summit is all about. So I want to thank everyone who's here for participating, and I look forward to continuing to work together. And now it's my honor to sign an executive order, and a couple of my friends are going to be coming out here, I'm told, cabinet members. But, you know, here we go. Where is everybody? Jill. Jill's here, the Attorney General. We got the dog, everybody's there. All right, Jill. I don't know what was going on back there, but you're all here. Okay, I was worried you weren't going to come out and hang out. Good to see you. All right. The title of this legislation is Improving Public Safety and Criminal Justice for Native Americans and Addressing the Crisis of Missing or Murdered Indigenous People. I'm proud to sign it. It's long overdue. There you go, Madam Secretary. General?
Thank you, sir.
Secretary. Thank you all so very much. We're going to make some substantial change in Indian country, and it's going to continue. Thank you all.
Thank you.
You ask me that all the time, and I give you the same answer. I've been confident since the day I stepped in office.
What are you going to talk to President Xi about? What are you going to talk to President Xi about? Are you hoping to lower the temperature with China?
Joe Biden. In John Dashijime, Belagana Nishne, Anastasia Bashichin. Tikon and Tushia, Shinakot and the Tushia. Niki the living California, Dami. Ha. Dayatu Washte, Chante Washte Nape, Chiusape. Marcella Chante, Iza Emachiapi. Waniatu Mawi Gemina, Lakota na Shahi la Hemacha. Pahisinte Etaha, Minnesota. Nawa Wetustagude, Dr. Joe Biden, Gudaka Mialaruska. Jitukawa Widow Sky. Gudaha Taylor Sky. Wedatska, Atawakara, Ada Nishu, Din Sakadish, Wanakano, Shutana, Shishnaka, Bash, Witness, Noah, Wako Stay.
Guati dawasti shabwa hinome dawane tashashka hanusta e yakawashi makayato. We need to continue our language to pass down to the younger generations after us. Doae hashtame gume juishakstrus.
Shepta hain yufret duasag, Blake cock hinach, Krista yufret duasag. Jinkak kagajin tauk ayafet. Chok nachetati, Kagwantan ayafet. Uch hit.
And I would like to thank you, Dr. Joe Biden, for having interest in our tribal nation. We're on the verge of losing our tribal languages, and I feel that our next generation would need to learn it before it is gone forever. Ahia, thank you.
Ahislachla, Hisquidspla, Kara Anton, Chinst Ichum, Shkishta on Autumn, Chin Telchats, Portland, Oregon. Hello, friends. My name is Kara Antone. My Indian name is Kyoho. I'm Coeur d'Alene Thon-Otham, and I'm coming to you from Portland, Oregon. I wanted to encourage all Native individuals to continue learning their language at any age. You are never too old or too young. Your ancestors can hear you whenever you speak, even the slightest amount. I wanted to thank you for this space, and I hope that you continue to bring Native youth voices to the forefront. Be much.
Bonjour, Asnoregi, Condition Cons, Makodo Dam, Shawakan Don Jaba, Nazaltun Mandan, Nishnabe Moen, and Wayang, Ne Kandan, Nishnabe Zitchagayan, Minwa, Nishnabe Kandaswan, Begishna Wewen Punjawag, Nishnaben Sag Naganin, Miguet Ogomakwe, Ge Bizendayan.
Our native languages are an extension of our identities and culture as Native people. And when we preserve them and speak them proudly, we honor our ancestors. I'd like to thank First Lady Dr. Jill Biden for her recognition of and dedication to preserving Native languages all across the United States. Shanabasha, Mado, and thank you.
I have his Wisway apples and Raymond Dutton. Stinstut, Lem lunch. Language is important and it connects me to my Dutton. I'm proud to be Indigenous.
Agute, she Malia Mosley Gonzet, Tendo Jage and Shlee. Hi, I'm Malia Mosley, a member of the St. Carlos Apache tribe. Thank you, Dr. Jill Biden, for all you've done for our educational system. It's important to preserve our tribal languages because it's a part of who we are and it cannot be lost. Ahia, thank you. Gojo Dolet, may you be blessed.
I love that video. Thank you. As an English teacher, I've always believed that language is not just a collection of words. Language has the power to create defining the shades of our joy and sorrow, dividing what matters from the mundane. It helps us tell the story of our culture and traditions, containing the wisdom of the world that only we know. It connects us to our faith, naming the divine and our relationship with it. It's a thread weaving through the past, present, and future, the inheritance of our ancestors, and a gift we give to our children. The ability to speak our own truth in our own words is power. This year, I visited Navajo Nation, the Alaska Native Medical Center, and the Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe in Michigan. And at each visit, I had the chance to hear tribal members speak in their native languages. Despite the dwindling numbers of speakers in each place, they are fighting to keep this important part of their heritage alive. It was a beautiful reminder that the spirit of a people cannot be lost when there are those who are willing to hold it in their hearts, to fight for it with love, dedication, and strength. Our administration is investing millions in native language education to revitalize many of the languages that are in danger of being forgotten. But there is still a lot of work to do. And it's urgent, as many elders were lost in this pandemic, the very leaders who keep the heart of tribal culture alive. We must protect these languages and traditions now more than ever. So today, I'm proud to announce a new memorandum of agreement on native languages. It brings our entire government together to promote and support the instruction and preservation of Native American languages. We have an obligation to heal the wounds of our past and pave a new path for Native communities. And the president and his team are doing just that. To everyone who continues to learn, speak, and teach your native language, thank you for keeping the spirit of your people alive.